YouTube, what's up everyone? Welcome back. All right, look, stop scrolling, turn up your volume, stop doubting, because what I'm about to show you, it's gonna blow the roof off of crypto. We got Eric Trump speaking on XRP. We got Michael Saylor dropping numbers that sound like science fiction. And we got Coinbase copying Ripple move for move, and the United Nations is screaming Ripple as a global payments hub. If you think it's just hype, well, you're about to see the receipts. We got a lot to cover. Let's get into it. Michael Saylor, the man on your screen, he just dropped the wildest prediction I think I've ever heard in my 8 years in crypto. If Bitcoin goes to $100 trillion, there's going to be 200 trillion in credit built on top of it. Think about that for a second. He's basically describing an entirely new financial system. Not just Bitcoin, but derivatives, the credit markets, the rails of finance all stacked on top. Listen to this real quick.
This thing is going to be big. There's no reason that credit, digital credit, the credit on gold became bigger than the gold supply. The digital credit may be bigger than the Bitcoin network. If Bitcoin goes to 100 trillion or 200 trillion, there could be 200 trillion of credit on top of it. You may not want to issue it. That's up to you. Someone will want to buy it, and that is the future that the market will determine. And the market is 100 industries, 100 capital markets, and your job as a Bitcoin treasury company, solve the problem, solve the compliance problem, solve the tax problem, solve the issuance problem, solve the credit problem, do the marketing, do the product design, solve the distribution problem. Evangelize the future of digital capital and digital credit, and roll with the punches, right? Don't get liquidated on volatility, build the most.
Here's the kicker about all this. If Bitcoin becomes the digital gold, XRP becomes the digital plumbing, the rails that move the money instantly across borders, and Saylor knows it. This isn't just about Bitcoin. It's about the infrastructure that makes the credit system work. And if Ripple has been quietly wiring the plumbing for over a decade, I hope you all realize that. Then we get this, just in Coinbase. They apply to have a national trust charter. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah. Why does it matter? Well, it's the same exact move that Ripple tried earlier this year. Coinbase is playing catch up, just like Swift is playing catch up, trying to get the same regulatory clarity and the same banking privileges that Ripple was gunning for. And if you don't file for a national trust charter, unless you plan on becoming the backbone of institutional payments, this is no incident, folks. This is about positioning for the $1 trillion floodgate that is about to open. And here's the article from August of this year. This is the twist in the plot, right? Ripple applied for this same National Trust Bank charter, the ICBA. It's called the Independent Community Bankers of America. They freaked out. They went nuts, these people. In their letter to the OCC, they literally warned that giving Ripple this power would undermine the stability of the financial system. Your translation here is, this would make Ripple way too powerful. Their tech, their stable coins, cross-border settlement, liquidity management. It was so far ahead of these traditional banks that they had to try and block it. And now we're seeing Coinbase taking the same steps that Ripple just tried to take. But Ripple already laid the tracks. Who do you think regulators trust more here? A trading exchange or a company that has been building global banking partnerships for over a decade at this point? And hey folks, the Instagram page is up and live. If you're not following me on Instagram, look, links down below. We got a link tree. It has all my links, all my socials. Give me a follow. Let's build this page together. Then we get this clip. This is a very interesting clip. We're going to listen to it. Paul Barron on here with Steve says, I may have been a little bearish. Not 5 billion now. I'm bullish on 10 billion inflows for the XRP ETF. So what this clip is setting up is everyone is just underestimating and underpinning the amount of money that's going to come into these XRP ETFs. It is going to be one of the largest ETFs that we have ever seen. I would not be surprised if it grows a lot larger than what Bitcoin has out there. We know what the future contracts did, and futures don't really do much. It's a piece of paper trading around what you think the price is going to be. These spot ETFs, they will physically get to hold the asset. Listen up.
What about in terms of the XRP ETF. We'll talk about your Solana ETF, but you look at XRP and you had the bold prediction actually on our show talking about the 5 billion inflows in the first month. Do you feel still strongly that that could happen?
I may have changed my mind. I may have been a little bearish.
Oh, okay. I love it when Steve is bearish on
But
5
I'm
billion.
going to hold to that number because, if it hits that number, then at least, I'll be right. And if it's 10 billion, then I'm still right because, we got at least 5 billion.
Where would that put, that would put it up as one of the best performing ETFs, maybe in all of history.
It would. I mean, it would certainly, if we saw that kind of inflow, I think it would be definitely in the top 20 ETF of all times, if not in the top 10
of all time.
Obviously, we saw how big of a response that Bitcoin got.
Yeah, well, that's what was it, like 3.2 billion in the first, right, 3 billion in one day. So the capacity there for an ETF of seeing in excess of 5 billion in a month for XRP, you feel is underreported.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that's a very safe bet.
A very safe bet. Look, I'm not going to say if this happens, when this happens. XRP is going to be one of the best performing ETFs in history. In history, folks. Imagine the charts. Imagine the headlines. Imagine the Bitcoin maxis. XRP ETF smashes records. That is the kind of event that cements XRP as the freaking king. And in Eric Trump, well, this is where it gets interesting. Turn up your volume. Because Eric Trump got connections. He got deep connections. He knows Brad Garlinghouse personally. He knows XRP. He knows the role Ripple is playing in this bigger chessboard that we are watching play out right in front of us. Why is this important? It's simple. Because politics and money are always tied together. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And when people close to power start name dropping XRP, it means that it is on the radar at the highest levels.
How do you feel about Doge? How do you feel about XRP, Ripple? How do you feel about, Ethereum? Where are you with the other three?
Know all of them extremely well. Know Brad very well at XRP, and he's done a great job. Know Ethereum very well. I'm one of the guys who was early on this year saying buy Ethereum as it's crashing, and Ethereum's come ripping back. I mean, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I'm a big fan of Ethereum. Bitcoin is digital gold. Ethereum is definitely the oil by which all financial systems are going to run on, and they've done tremendously well. And I think, honestly, cryptocurrency, all the altcoins, I think are going to do well as Bitcoin rips.
Wait until Eric starts tweeting out to buy the XRP dip, because you know what? It's coming. Then we get this. Institutions, they all have one obsession right now, and that obsession is custody. If you can't custody trillions in assets, guess what? You don't win this race. And Ripple's partnership with Matteo and Standard Custody, that proves that they aren't just thinking about payments. They're thinking about who gets to hold the keys for this new system. Listen.
Ryan, I predict to you now within 5 years, virtually most of the money moving around the world, most of the dollars moving around the world will be moving on tokenized digital networks. And within 10 years, I predict to you that there won't be a securities offering, a debt offering, an equities offering of any significance that's not tokenized on chain. And those securities offerings that remain in an analog state will be like those bearer bonds in DTC's vault, the coupon clipping bonds that don't matter anymore. Non-tokenized, non-digitized securities will be like those old dusty photo albums, and securities on chain will be like the digital photos on your smartphone.
Look, this is the agenda that will decide the winners, and Ripple, it's already on the inside. Now let's get into this. This is huge, okay? We're going to talk about this massive partnership and what's actually going on here, because we can see that saving and sending money across Africa, Ripple state, shouldn't be expensive or slow. That's why Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin is flipping that script. Partner with Chyperkez, Valor, and Yellow Card. What's happening here and what we see on the screen isn't just payments, it's financial liberation. Billions of dollars flowing across border with Ripple's tech powering it, soon to be trillions of dollars. This isn't theory, it is live right now, today, transforming how the developing world accesses money. But I want to bring you back to this. If you weren't around in 2020, maybe you haven't seen this, but here's the kicker. Ripple is not doing this alone, right? They're connected with the Mojo Loop Foundation, a Bill and Melinda Gates, you probably heard that name before, initiative that is designed to power financial inclusion globally. And Who do you think is running the rails behind it? If you guessed Ripple, you guessed right. They're wiring themselves into humanitarian, developmental, and financial networks that the government cannot ignore. But it gets deeper because the United Nations, yes, the UN, stated, and we'll mute this video for a second, that Ripple and Stellar were both highlighted in this by the UN, describing an open and regulated payment internetwork, global interoperability where money can move anywhere on any network. Guess who's in the center of that vision? If you guessed Ripple, you won again. But it gets deeper because it doesn't stop there. The United Nations officially recognized both Ripple and Thunes as global payment hubs. Why is that so big? Well, A, it's not just speculation. B, that's the UN putting Ripple on the blueprint for the next financial system. But you probably remember that name Thunes because I just covered Thunes not too long ago. There you go. You can see me up on the screen right there. Let's tie this all together. Thunes, a Ripple partner, they just plugged directly into Swift, which means that Ripple's liquidity can now reach into 11,000 banks worldwide. 11,000 all through Thunes. Think about what that means. Ripple's tech just got a backdoor into the biggest banking network on earth. This isn't about one coin pumping, everyone. It's about a new financial order. Michael Saylor's $100 trillion prediction, Coinbase copying Ripple, the UN putting Ripple on stage, Eric Trump coming out officially stating, I know Brad Garlinghouse personally, and Swift giving Ripple liquidity access to over 11,000 banks all through Thunes. This isn't opium. It's happening today, right now. We are witnessing it. The question is, are you going to sit on the sidelines? I know I'm not. Are you going to be holding this when history gets rewritten? Because guess what? History, it's being rewritten right in front of our very eyes. Smash that like, drop me a comment down below, and hey, make sure you subscribe to the channel because tomorrow's news cycle, it's only going to get crazier.